Hi, welcome to the podcast Beyond the Ballot, a Lone Wolf production. This is where we showcase local politics by providing a platform for elected officials and candidates. Today's episode is sponsored by Somers resident Mike Nieves, along with Ray Solano, chairman and president of Scorrano Mobility and Accessibility. Scorrano Mobility and Accessibility specializes in repairs and sales in all types of stair lifts, custom indoor and outdoor models, wheelchair lifts, wheelchair ramps, and more. They have more than 30 years of experience in the industry and service customers throughout the country. I'm proud to introduce the guest for today's show, Rob Scorrano, the town supervisor for Somers. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
So I always start the episode by asking for a few lighthearted questions, and then we'll ease into a more serious type question dialogue. Let's discuss your personal background. How long have you lived in Somers, and what do you think makes this area so special?
Great question. So born and raised in Somers. My parents moved to Somers in 1972. Went through the Somers School District. Unbelievable experience. Got to play Friday Night Lights. Just loved the area, and so I moved out for a little bit, went to college in Long Island, went to Hofstra University where I was fortunate to play football there.
Wow. What position did you play?
I played safety, so on defense. And it was just great. So then, I started my career working in D.C., which was maybe the beginning of the whole politics type stuff. Was out there doing energy trading, which is something that's been very fortunate to have. But then, went to New York City for a little bit. Then went to California for some time, probably about a little less than a year. Came back to the Northeast, to Princeton, New Jersey, and then moved back to the city, and then started a family, got married, starting a family. And I always said to myself, where would I like to have raise a family? And Somers was just the perfect place. And that's just because of the people that are here in the town of Somers, the community. The community knows how to rally behind tragedies and events. And that's not the reason why, but it's just that homely feeling that you get when you drive through town, right? Everybody knows your name. Kind of in the beginning when I started this run as town supervisor, I kind of made a joke. It's like Cheers, right? Like you want to go where everybody knows your name, and that is completely Somers. And that's just sort of where we want to tie the roots and sort of build, raise your family.
So were there any mentors or role models that have made a difference in your life?
Well, first and foremost, my parents, right? My dad was just an unbelievable confidant, just unbelievable person I can bounce ideas off of. Anything that's going on in my life, personally or professionally, my dad's always the number one person that I go to. And then there's my mom. My mom passed probably about 5 years ago or so, but she was the one person that said, if you have a dream, go for it. Don't worry about what anybody says to you, right? If you believe in it, go for it. She always had my back, always had my corner, just always pushing me to be the best, which is great. Then I have my brothers. My brothers are great. My older brother, Michael's a great mentor. I have my younger brother, Jason, just another great confidant just to bounce ideas off of and talk. And behind that big brother and little brother mentality. So it's great. But then I've been fortunate through my work experiences, right? In the energy field, when I first started in the energy career, I have great people who I'm still in contact with now, and which has helped, some of the other things that I've been venturing into, and I think we'll kind of maybe talk about that a little bit. But then when I got into the personal financial world, I've always had people that I've been able to talk to, always had people to sort of that guidance, right? And I think that's sort of like the football player that I am, right? And the sports aspect and the sports mentality, where there's coaches in every levels and every aspects of everyday walk of life. And part of it too is reaching out to them, asking for their advice too. But also that is that you become sort of a mentor too to other people throughout the day. So there's been a lot of people that I would say have been mentors in that regard or confidants, and but I also like to give back and do that for other people as well. So I think it's been a little bit of a nice road in that regard, kind of full circle.
Yeah, I would say so. That's very nice. Okay, last question to break the ice. Mm-hmm. Is there anything about yourself that people might not know or might find interesting?
Well, I did some acting for a little bit. It was kind of came out on the campaign trail. It was great experience, right? Different people from different walks of life, different backgrounds. That was an amazing experience.
When did you get into acting?
When I was energy trading, right, in the city. I loved it. It freed you open. It kind of gave, right, improvisation it was a key part of it. Being able to think on the fly, being able to, I wouldn't say memorize lines and stuff like that, but just kind of give you that confidence of being in front of people, in front of a live stage, acting or putting a theater production on in front of, 150, 200 people.
Right. And that's super helpful in your position as a town supervisor.
100%.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that sort of all the things that I've done throughout my career, right, have kind of led me to this point. And that's sort of that connecting the dots and picking out the different things that you've done in your career to help benefit not only you as an individual or as a human being, but also benefit the town, benefit the people that are surrounding you. And that's kind of a great thing. So the acting part of it was an unbelievable experience, just a lot of fun. And
what type of acting was it?
So I did a lot of stage, did some independent films, did a little bit of, little bit of TV work. It was great, and I went out to California for, 9 months out there. It was great, and got to see that world of California, the business side of aspect of things. Worked for a production company for a little bit before I went out to California, which was great. You kind of get to see all of the
behind the scenes
type stuff. And listen, I'm still in contact with a lot of people from that profession as well, or that passion. Mm-hmm. And I think that's
that industry.
I think a lot of it stemmed from my mom in that regard. My mom's voice was just out of this world, beautiful voice. I think she always wanted to take it one step further, right, in that regard, and record music, albums and that kind of stuff. But with the arts and the sports, football is a lot like acting in a lot of ways, right? You're in front of people. You have to perform. You have to, do the job that you're supposed to be doing. So
in other words, you're the triple threat.
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, I don't have the voice though, as my mom does. My daughter does, but I don't have her voice.
All right, let's get down to quote unquote the hard hitting questions.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So you delved into your professional experience a little bit and kind of how it's kind of navigated you towards being, I would say, successful as a town supervisor. Is there anything you want to add that has specifically prepared you from your professional experience to the role of town supervisor? Anything else that we didn't touch on?
No, I mean, I'm just double down on sort of the experiences you take from different positions, right? So not only in the energy business and the energy world and understanding what's happening on with the energy stuff going on currently today, but also in going further, I had my own financial practice. I had a team of financial advisors underneath me, right? Kind of being that mentor, being that coach, understanding the business in that regard. Having a team, putting together budgets. When I worked for corporate America, putting together budgets, understanding the budgets, understanding the ins and outs and the nitty gritty that goes into putting the budget together. Understanding different personalities, right? When I brought people in to be sort of in the financial business world, I didn't care what your nationality, your skin color, any of that nature. Were you awesome, right? Were you a great person? Did you have those characteristics that you look for in building a cohesive team and building that and making them successful in that realm? So, and it's a lot like, small town USA when you have that, where you have different people from different walks of life and all that other kind of stuff. So you kind of, those things that you take from the business experiences to bring it into here as a town supervisor was just so beneficial.
So what caused you to initially run for town supervisor? And is there some sort of motivation that you still have that you continue to run?
Yeah, well, so when I first, I wanted to get involved. I didn't know where to get involved, right? So before I was the town supervisor, and I was on the zoning board of appeals here in the town of Somers, the ZBA. I was on that for 3.5, I think 4 years, something around that. Started a family, and then that kind of becomes,
your priority.
Yeah. And that, having young kids is tough, running around. But I wanted to get involved. And then Rick Morrissey, the supervisor before myself, was stepping down, didn't want to run after the 8 years. He was, sort of retiring in that regard. And there was a little bit of not an emptiness, but didn't know who was going to run for the position.
Like a void.
I say who's going to run for the position. So then one thing, after I said that I like to get more involved, then people were trying to put 2 and 2 together. Who would be a great candidate for this position? Well, here's Rob Scorrano, as lifelong Somers resident, understands the town, worked for the town on the zoning board of appeals. And then people started approaching me about that and saying, hey, would you be interested in this? I did have my own practice and that kind of stuff in the financial world. But it is something that I wanted to give back to my community. And I think it's, I wish more people would want to give back to their community on that regard. Maybe not so much in a political standpoint or a political role, but through, other things, working through
other channels
or different boards or that kind of stuff, or volunteer work.
I think in general, people are so busy with their lives, especially the people that have younger children. They have just so much going on and they're so distracted by it. So
yeah, they are, and for me, it worked, right? I had the kids in the school districts, and being able to be within town and working, and it was great. So that thinking about that and the difference, but my campaign slogan when I first started is, I'm a Tusker through and through, and that's what I am, and being a part of the town and being able to put your stamp or your mark on how it can affect generation after generation after generation is something that I take, massive amounts of pride in, right? Because the things that I put in place today, right, are going to affect the next generation and the next generation of Somers residents. So, I take that, unbelievably with it's an unbelievable responsibility. But I love it. I love that. I love having that pressure, right? You kind of thrive under pressure. Yeah. Some people don't, but I do, right? And I take it, and I always come from that side that I always say, it doesn't matter what you are, Republican or Democrat, right? I'm going to do what's in the best interest of the town of Somers, and then kind of go from there.
So throughout your term, what accomplishments are you most proud of?
There's a few, right? There's a few coming in here. We've, for 15 years or maybe a little bit longer, it's been longer than that now, it's probably about 17 years. There's been the talks or the negotiations with having the trying to keep the state police here in the town of Somers. They've been asking, they want to leave and all this other stuff. They need a new building. And then just the communication and the talking to the fire district, talking to the state police, sort of the town being the broker into the middle of it, and working out that arrangement. We're finally able to do that. We're just waiting on the last little bit of pieces. And once that happens, we'll purchase the property, we'll purchase the land, and then give it to then we'll have the state police build their building on it to keep the state police here. That's a huge plus for the town of Somers.
They're located on Route 100?
Route 100.
Okay.
The other thing, too, is another 15 or 17-year thing that we finally closed out was the property land swap from Reese Park and the county to be able to look at, Reese Park as an entirety, as a whole. Just gives us more access and more ability to be able to expand if we were looking to expand. It made more sense for us to do that, but that was a 15-year thing. Smaller things, too. We kind of get into taxes and that kind of stuff. By the time we talk about that, is, Westchester, Somers has been one of the lowest tax towns in Westchester County. And that's important. And that's it's a huge thing for our Somers residents to understand that we try to keep our taxes as low. It's a desirable place to come in and and live and raise a family. So the town is doing their part when it comes to that. Smaller things too is we talk a little bit about, the Thelma Barlow crossing, right? It may not seem like a huge deal, but that's from the crosswalk from DeChico's to the Bobos, right? It's just providing safe access for the kids to go there, right? And that was just recently that we did something and we named it after Thelma Barlow, who was a lifelong Somers resident. She was in the Scouts, but she also was the crossing guard at the school. She started back in like the Wayne Van Tassel days when Wayne Van Tassel, so we're moving way, way back, right, into the 1980s when Wayne Van Tassel was there. So she was there for a very long time, 30-something years, I believe. But that's a little small thing that people get to see, right? And then also things I'm proud of is that our teams continue to work together within that, right? Our highways communicating with Parks and Rec, and our water and sewer department are communication. We have monthly meetings. We have all the department heads come in and sit around like a round table and discuss what's going on and how can we share ideas and see what's working, see what's not working. And that's sort of that corporate mentality that I brought into it and saying, hey, listen, our job is to serve the public, of course, but how do we work with each other? I'm not a big fan of silos. I'm not a big fan of having departments not knowing what's going on with other departments, and kind of bringing that sort of...
that would be very counterproductive.
It would, but, sometimes, it happens in a lot of ways, right? It happens because you get caught up in your own little thing. Well, I'll just take, for example, not that it happens, but water and sewer just focuses on water and sewer, right? And the highway just focuses on what they have to focus on. And the parks are just focusing on that. And everybody working together in unison makes it for a lot better job to get done.
What about any challenges you faced in your term?
Yeah, so there's been some challenges, things that you would never want to have happen, right? We had a serious event that happened, with the murder that we had in Somers. You're unprepared for that when it happens. You don't know how to. You kind of, I wouldn't say freeze, it's not the right word, but having to go something that first challenge of that regard, you're kind of like, ooh, wow, like this is real, right? This is real. And then you have to address the public about it. And I made a video about that, trying to address the public and let them know what's going on. Being out in front of the media, right? Not letting it escalate and get that way. And I think that's all the skills that I've had before, but those are things that I've never, right? And those are things that you rely on with other people that you have around you, right? And, just a first story about that, just to say about when that happened, they were, the media was starting to, in Baldwin Place, starting to assemble, right? So here, I called up Assemblyman Matt Slater, right? And I said, you got a few minutes? And he's like, yeah. So we met, and we actually met at Bobo's in Baldwin. And we looked out behind us, and there they are. And then talking about a mentor or stuff like that, Matt had the experience of being a town supervisor. Now he's assemblyman. And, he organized the whole thing, right? He's like, hey, this is the media's here, boom. We sat down and made the statement and that kind of stuff. So you're not prepared for things like that, right? Because you kind of, and as a dad, and I have two kids, you can't imagine what would happen, to this woman and her children. And it's a tragic. You're not prepared for things like that. You're not prepared for other things that happen. We've had some other events that have happened in town. But the town seemed to, the town rallied again. We had storms, right? We had blackouts. We've had areas and organizing the emergency centers and that kind of stuff. And, people are really good with their houses. They're mostly resilient now, and people have the generators and stuff like that. But it's mobilizing those things. And how do we get their information out to the residents, It's the communication with the NYSEG. It's communication with them and saying, all right, hey, these are where we're seeing the hot spots, and where are you seeing it, and understanding that. Those are things they don't prepare you for. Right. And those are things that you lean on the experts that you have. And those are the communications that you build and the relationships you build with the people in those areas. And I think I've been very successful in building those relationships and making sure that if I don't know everything, right? That's people think that you're going to supervise, you know everything. No, you wouldn't. Not CEOs of Fortune 500 companies don't know everything, but if they have great communication skills with their department heads and they have great communication skills with the people that can help them, that's what makes for a great
leadership. So once again, you're unopposed for this election cycle. And I think that speaks volumes for your leadership. With that being said, what goals do you have for the future of Somers, and why do you think it is that, once again, you're unopposed?
Listen, so goals for town of Somers, right? So it's always the big goal is to remain as one of the lowest tax towns in Westchester County. I think that is important. It makes us attractive for new families to come in and to raise their family. That's one of our goals. One of our goals is also trying to finish, out some of the open infrastructure projects that we have. Those are things that we need to really address, and that. So goals for the bigger goals is to bring, close out some of the open infrastructure projects that we have. Continue to fight with with the state about our roads here. That is a huge one that I'm tackling. Hopefully we're making some headway with those kind of things, hoping that we get some more momentum on that. It's out of our control, but if we can continue to put the pressure on New York State to let them know and continue to show them roads like 118 and Route 202 and 35 and how hard they are, and the pressure that you keep putting on your cars on these roads, right, especially the heart of the town, and for our emergency services, the roads aren't that good,
Right, and especially if they have the state mandate of electric bus fleets.
Yeah.
I don't know, I could be wrong, if the infrastructure could handle that.
Yeah, I don't think they would be able to handle the electric bus fleets. So, I mean, we've talked about that. We've sent letters up that. We've had certain conversations in that regard, and about buses and plows and those types of things. And I can't imagine the big, huge equipment for a plow going out there in a storm, and your battery life is about 3-4 hours, but it takes you maybe 8 hours to charge.
Yeah, it's not feasible.
I mean, it's going to take 3 weeks to clean up a storm. So, I mean, in that regard, but to answer the question as to why I think I've been unopposed, is I think I have a lot of support, just not only between Republicans, but also Democrats. I've always made it a point that when you're in a leadership role in town, we try to avoid as much as we possibly can the national politics scale. And yes, there's a few things that trickle down, right? State level affects us a lot more, in that regard. Some of the stuff that comes down from Albany and kind of affects the town. And I've been outspoken about that, because that will affect the town on that regard. But the national politics stuff, right, is something that we try to avoid. And I think we've done a great job at that. But it's also having the communication, right, with some of the Democratic, leaders in the community and stuff like in the town of Somers, where they know that I have an open door policy, or they can call me if they have something that's going on. So I think in that regard, I think I've done a pretty good job, in making sure that we try to stay away from that, and to do the best interest of everybody in the town of Somers.
I just want to take a brief moment to kindly thank the sponsors of today's episode. Somers resident Mike Nieves, along with Ray Solano, chairman and president of Solano Mobility and Accessibility. Solano Mobility and Accessibility specializes in repairs and sales of all types of stair lifts, customized indoor and outdoor models, wheelchair lifts, wheelchair ramps, and more. They have more than 30 years of experience in the industry and service customers throughout the country. Please visit their website at solanoma.com. I want you to know that I've always thought your leadership was quite exemplary. There are a few reasons why. For instance, the act of defending home rule in regard to the circumstance of the proposed lithium battery facility. Could you explain in detail more about that and the proactive approach that was taken?
Yeah, so first and foremost, I have to give credit to the community up there in Baldwin Place. They are the ones that made my position and my talking points and being the voice to help them try to carry everything over. They are the ones that deserve a heck of a lot more credit than I do. That organization that organized together and they had their website and all that other stuff and was very vocal when it came to that. They made my job so much easier. And being able to help with being a voice for that and then getting other people involved. I mean, I did write letters to the Carmel Planning Board and was there in person to show support for the residents in the town of Somers. To put a 116 megawatt battery energy storage facility in a community and near homes is just, I'm kind of at a loss for words, right? It's unfathomable to even think that, right? 116 megawatt facility, especially with the safety concerns, especially with the fires, especially with things that could happen in that. It's just wrong, right? It kind of made my job easier, right? Because you understand that it's wrong. There's no way of looking at it differently, of saying, right? So you're able to get behind it and get riled up and then understand the ins and outs in that regard. But again, the group that organized and created so more of an awareness, not just for the Somers and Mayapack and the surrounding areas, but it got national, right? I applaud them for that. I mean, that kind of makes your job so much easier when things are there. I mean, defending home rule is the foundation of any town. And we have defended home rule on many occasions with the transition-oriented development, with the accessory dwelling units that they were proposing, right? And we can kind of, that's really nitty-gritty, but some of those things that we defended when I first came into office, and understanding, trying to take away home rule and Albany trying to tell the town of Somers or Carmel or Yorktown or North Salem that they know better than the people who live and who help run that town is just crazy, right?
Yeah.
Get in a car, drive down here, spend some time understanding how the town operates. They possibly couldn't go to every single location or every town across New York State, right? This is why we have home rule, because we know what's best, right, for the residents of our town. We know what's best for our neighbors, the surrounding neighbors that we have. And that's why we have those sort of things back and forth. That's why you know the supervisors in different towns. This is why this is why there's checks and balances. But for Albany to push certain things like battery energy storage or transmission-oriented develop or the ADUs or that kind of stuff, or trying to strip away home rule, is just government trying to take away the ability for a town to operate.
Right, and just to force their initiatives.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah, and it's a lot of it's mandates and stuff like that. And I always say it's putting the cart before the horse, right? You need a horse first. You got to understand everything. You got to understand what's going on, and then you build around it. But it's some of these mandates and these initiatives that they have, they throw it out there and see what sticks.
Right.
And a lot of time it doesn't stick, right? Because they haven't done the homework. They haven't done the homework leading up to all of these things and saying, okay, well, if you do this, it's going to affect this, this, and this. Then why would it be a good thing?
Yeah.
If that happens, then it's going to affect this. It's like a chart. Go into a war room or go into a room, throw it on a board and say, all right, here's our thought. Here's our initial proposal, what we're thinking about, right? If we do this, if we try to implement this through mandates or initiatives and all this kind of stuff, it's going to affect this, this, and this.
A chain reaction.
Yeah. This is our ultimate end goal here.
Right. I personally don't think they care. I think it comes down to, as what they say, follow the money.
Could be.
I think so. Personally. Another thing that qualifies your leadership in your display of transparency. And I've seen your social media videos, Let's Talk Facts, where you discuss and simplify the most recent topics of town, legislation, and your response to this. Can you tell us more about this and what specific issues have you communicated about?
Yeah, so Let's Talk Facts just, started with the sort of the new energy rates, and that kind of stuff with the NYSEG and the Con Ed rates. And, there's a lot of noise out there, right? People don't know what to believe, right? And a lot of times, and that's national politics, local politics, state politics, all that kind of stuff. So I wanted to just go to the residents and say, hey, listen, this is the facts. This is why you're seeing certain things happening. But as you start doing these things, you start to uncover so much more, right? You start to uncover what's going on in Albany. You kind of understanding that some of these mandates, right? These green energy mandates are starting to trickle down. You're starting to see all sorts of stuff. So I wanted to just kind of break away from right and left, right? R's and D's, and say, hey guys, and this is what we are seeing. This is what we are facing. You may not be knowledgeable about it, right? But I'm going to explain it to you in the best way, and hopefully in a 2 minute and 10 minute video, 2 minutes and 10 second video, right? And I'm going to try to explain it to you about what's happening. And why we're seeing this happen, and what are some of the things that people are doing in Albany, trying to take away home rule, trying to look at those kind of stuff, and then to break it down kind of small pieces for them, and then people can weigh in if they like. But everything's factual. That's what I've been about. Just everything's factual about what's going on. I do have another one probably coming out in the next week or so. It takes a little time. It's a production like this. You take some time to put it together. But just sort of want to be able to, educate New Yorkers, not only Somers residents, because it's taken off, right? I mean, one of the couple of things I've seen, one of my videos has 10,000 views.
Wow.
So which is great, right? I got phone calls from people in, like Iowa saying, hey, I saw your video. This is great. This could happen here in our, yeah. Okay. Those are good things to have. Those are good. Those are what you want to do.
To bring awareness. That people need to be educated about what is happening. You need to kind of be aware, not just listen to one side or the other about what happens, but to become educated, to be that here and that's sort of where the Let's Talk Facts. And remove all the noise, like you said, and just keep it simple and just talk facts.
Just talk facts.
Right.
Because there's nothing that, in that there's certain things, but if you talk facts, right, then how do you refute that? Right.
Yeah.
And how do you say it? And it's sort of an educational piece. And I think that's a lot of it started, or the education part of it happened, is sort of from my careers and my jobs that leading up to all of this, right? Is this, I love to coach. I'm a coach as well, right? And you got to tell kids about, hey, if you do this, this will happen, right? If you have to do it this way, because if you don't, then that will happen. Same thing, trying to lay it out for the rest of for the viewers, to say, hey, listen, let's talk facts. Let's show you the facts here, and then if it's up to them how they want to be able to do it.
Right. As mentioned, you've been advocating for the people of Somers. In regard to the steep NYSEG rate increases, in your opinion, why are we seeing such a huge spike in energy rates, and what are some steps that you have taken to try to shed some light on this issue?
Listen, I have conversations with NYSEG, all the time. I'm in a lot of their meetings. There's one of those things I don't boast about, right? A lot of times I don't let everybody know exactly what I'm doing, right? I think I'm very much, my leadership style is not to boast, right? To brag. Hey, look at me. I'm here today. I'm there tomorrow. I'm going to be here. Look at my photo.
Right.
That's not me. So I want the people out there in Somers to no, that's not who I am, right? But I think, why do I think that's happening in New York with all of these rate hikes and all that kind of stuff? That it's solely, and I've been saying it sort of in my production, it is the mandates that are coming down from Albany, the unattainable mandates that we are seeing, right? We have such a huge aging infrastructure in this state. Our transmission lines are.
When was the last time they were updated? Do you know?
I don't know that answer, right? When the last time they were updated, but they're old, right? So, I mean, yeah, other states have invested billions of dollars into transmission upgrades and upgrades and stuff like that, and that's sort of where I started the cart before the horse. Great, right? Hey, no one can say like, hey, clean energy, right? I've never not supported clean energy. I say it in every single one. I support clean energy, but you have to do it in a responsible manner. You just can't have a mandate coming down from Albany and say, hey, listen, we want to be fully, energy independent, green energy by 2030. That's not going to happen.
Yeah.
You haven't made the investments in the beginning to start. Hey, we just put in $10 billion for transmission upgrades. Okay, now people can start seeing, okay, well, we made the investment first. You just can't throw it on people and then throw it on residents and throw it on there. And then you have all these other things happening. And Albany saying, we're not going to ever reach this. We're not going to reach this goal. Now we need to,
Right. And most of these renewable projects are funded by government subsidies, correct?
I believe so, yeah.
Which are in turn funded by taxpayers.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, and then you see the ratepayers. So then you see you see NYSEG having to, raise their rates, and you see Con Ed having to raise their rates, right? So it's an evil cycle of trickle down, and that's what we're seeing, right? Because I don't think, and maybe I'm wrong, maybe they do have conversations, but towns are never a part of that. I've never gotten a phone call for a roundtable discussion to see from anybody, and anybody in New York State, anybody on that regard, and saying, hey, town supervisors, we want your input on A, B, and C. How will this affect your town? No, it's take away home rule, and then we'll dictate how it works. See, that's to me that's a big problem, right? That's one of the reasons why I started saying this, because where is the voice, right? Where is the voice? How are you coming to these decisions? And I don't have the answers how they're coming to the decisions, because we're never a part of it. We're never part of the conversation. We're never part of that. I can go to my colleagues throughout this area. I don't think they've ever been part of the conversation. And it directly affects a town. And it affects our residents. It affects our senior population. It affects our businesses. It affects everybody. And then
what's the consequence of that? People are going to leave.
People will leave. And then there's a whole other effect too. So one adds to the other, right? And then we can get into other discussions about that. But yeah, people will leave and go to other states. And unfortunately, we have a mad exodus, of leaving New York, right? And that's sort of, and to get back to the beginning, one of your first questions as to why I got involved in this is because we see that. And how do we make the people, the old stories that we grew up with, right? Not the commercials. I love New York. Remember those commercials that were there?
Yeah.
I love New York, right? Like
Triple Threat.
Yeah, Triple Threat. That's my hoarse voice today. But I mean, you don't see those commercials anymore.
No.
Why? Because
I don't think people really love New York anymore. I don't know.
But I would say this. I mean, yes and no, right? I mean, but there is a certain we're seeing nowadays where we're seeing, in this area at least a little bit, that the older kids or families want to move into Somers or Yorktown or Carmel in that regard, but the grandparents aren't ready to leave, right? They're not ready to leave. They don't want to leave and go to Florida or something of that nature. That's what, but they don't want to go there. They want to stay and they want to see they want to see the grandchildren. They want to see them grow up. They want to be a part of it. And that's a whole nother thing too, because there's not enough housing, right? Or there's not enough sort of incentives for people then to create the apartment, right? The 2-family old style home like we used to see in the 1950s, right? where kids would come back home, and they would be like, we're going to start a family, and grandma and grandpa would be like, okay, well, we'll go downstairs, right? We don't see that much anymore. We're starting to see a little bit of change of that. We're starting to see more grandparents who want to stay in the area, right? But the affordability and stuff like that. So, I mean, those kind of got off topic a little bit, right? But that's
reality.
But that's reality.
Yeah.
Because again, Albany is not checking or asking local towns, and unfortunately, either are the people who we elected to those areas. They're not. Like, how does that policy that a senator or an assemblyman from New York, how is that going to affect? Yes, there are some good ones, and I've talked to some good ones, right? And but those things, how they don't have that conversation. You turn on you go onto the internet and you search the bills, and you're like, why would you think about this would be a good bill?
First, you have to try to interpret it.
Correct.
It's kind of hard to, as a layperson that doesn't deal with that type of verbiage.
Right. Well, it took me some time to understand it, right? The more you read them, okay, all right, this is the verbiage I'm understanding, boom. Hey, then you have someone else whose expertise is that, right? And you say, hey, can you explain this to me in that regard? But I've gotten a heck of a lot better at it. You know where to find what the verbiage now. It just takes time, of course. But I don't see that really happening too much. Yeah, there are a couple good ones and who say, hey, listen, this is what I'm trying to do. What do you think about this? But there's others who don't, and that's all across New York. And I think that for the community that you represent, you need to be in front of that leadership, right? And I don't care if that person is a Democratic supervisor, Republican supervisor. Your job when you serve Albany, right, is to serve the people in your district, regardless, right? My job, town supervisor, regardless, I serve every single person. When you get to that district, when you're now in Albany, your job is to serve every single person, Republican or Democrat, in your district. You got elected as an R or a D. I get it, right? That's how you have to run, right? But as soon as that's over, you got to serve that, right? And there's some good ones, and there's people who do. And then when you get to the national level, it's the same thing. My job is to serve anybody who's a Republican or a Democrat. I got elected to serve everybody as a whole. And you can't pick and choose. Some do, some don't.
So before we conclude this episode, are there any other campaign talking points or a final message that you'd want to share?
Yeah. We have an election here on November 4th.
Early voting starts October 25th.
October 25th. We have early voting at the Elephant Hotel. I'm running with two unbelievable candidates, right? Bill Faulkner and Anthony Sirico. Both have been councilmen for 10 plus years. Both have institutional knowledge in the town of Somers. They know the intricacies that are going on. They have business acumen. They're invested into the community. They're on all sorts of different committees. They're out and about. They're there to be seen, and they're there to answer questions. We have a really solid board. And if you go around to a lot of different boards throughout Westchester County, I can tell you that the board that we have is by far one of the best. There are not a lot of the other problems that we see in the town of Somers, right, that other communities are seeing. We don't, right? And I think that's a testament to how the board is placed and how the board has been established. So I would just ask the people of Somers to go out and vote for Anthony Sirico and Bill Faulkner. Yes, I'm running unopposed, so you can vote for me as well. But they're two
solid.
Yeah, solid individuals.
Yeah,
and they do the job day in and day out. They're invested into the town. They're invested in the community. Their face is out there all the time, and that's what you wanted when you elect a leader.
Is there a website, Facebook account, Instagram account that people can search and learn more about you and your campaign?
So listen, it's one of those things where, you run unopposed, right? So, but where people can go and learn more stuff is in my Facebook, the supervisor at Somers.
Where they could see your production.
Where I can see my production, yeah. Listen, and one of the things I do lack, right, is that sort of that pushing the social media content out there to see what goes on. And I think that's sort of something, one of the things, right, I grapple back and forth, right? Because sometimes you put something out there that is out there on your page, and then you get the people who, want to say this and who want to say that. And as a supervisor, it's not that you want people to say that, right? You want people to be educated and stuff like that. So I try to stay away from the politics side on that.
Anything polarizing.
Mm-hmm. In that regard. But they could for that they can go on. They can see the videos that I've posted for that kind of stuff. They could see the 4 or 5 that I've done for Let's Talk Facts. We do post some stuff there, like Independence Day celebration, that kind of stuff. That's all good stuff. But I don't try to put any campaign stuff out there. But that could change. I mean, someone could run against me, and the next time around, and then they'll be flooded with it. So, it's one of those things.
So. There you have it, folks. Rob Scorrano, the town supervisor of Somers, constantly at work for the people of Somers, also the triple threat. It's been great having you on the show, and I wish you the best of luck in November.
Thanks, Steve. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. If anyone, a business owner or individual, would be interested in sponsoring future episodes, please reach out to us. Also, if you live in Westchester or Putnam County and you would like to come on the show as a guest to discuss any concerns, ideas, or even promote an upcoming event, we'd love to have you. Thank you for watching the podcast Beyond the Ballot. Like, subscribe, and leave us your comments. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.